I hope you all had a wonderful Thanksgiving. And I would definitely like to say I'm so glad, as I know you all are, that our former CBA president, John Weaver, is here with us tonight. And looking good, and looking healthier. Okay, just a few announcements, and then we're going to get right to the grand finale. First of all, the Bahia project goes to the commission next week, which is on December 5th, Tuesday, December 5th. Okay, that's next week, which is, unfortunately, we had to have it the day before our holiday party. It better not go till 4 in the morning. Yeah. Like, oh, no, Dean. Okay, so this will be built on a very important piece of public land. I wish that the developers would have come and let us, as CBA members, put our input in before they totally proceeded with the project. That didn't happen. They didn't come to the board and they didn't come to our membership. So as you all know, they did a public forum meeting in August. They came to our membership in September 27th. And you got to see the project basically, somewhat maybe for the first time, a lot of you. And now we're in December 5th, and you know, they passed P&Z 6-3, and now here we are, and they're going to the commission. So I'm asking everyone, obviously, to go, whether you like the project, you don't like the project, whatever, however you feel. We have a very big, important voice on the beach. And just everybody show up. I mean, we're more of a force in numbers or whatever. So if you like it, you don't like it. You know, normally a lot of people show up that don't like it. But the people that do like it show up too and say you're for it or whatever. So, you know, it goes both ways on that. So, I'll remind everybody too of that email blast about Tuesday. Fun stuff is our next holiday party will be next week on Wednesday, the 6th, at the Mayoral here, but in the captain's quarters, and that's on the water. If some people don't know that are new members, that's on the water. And I'll send out about that also. Registration will start at 5:30 and the party's from 6 to 8. Our next membership meeting will be on January 10th at the Conrad. I'll send out more information about that, but a lot of it on who has your sheets, your agenda sheets, there's information on there. Asking everyone to please go to our CBA FTL website. We've updated it quite a bit and everything for information, for events, things that are happening on the beach. Please visit there and you'll get the information. So what will happen tonight, the candidates, they'll have up to 5 minutes. Meaning, if they want to use their whole 5 minutes to speak and to tell the membership why they would like to be for office, we appreciate that. Somebody has to be up there and speak for the city. So they'll have up to 5 minutes. If they want to use the whole 5 minutes, that's fine. If they don't, those extra minutes will be used for questions. So. There's only going to be 5 minutes for questions of each one because, of course, we have 8 people speaking. And, we start to lose you about 9 o'clock. We know that, so we don't want to lose you. So we're going to move it right along. And Bob has the bell. And he's going to ding the bell when 5 minutes are up. Just like at the commission. No. Oh, what am I doing? Yes. Oh, ding at 4. Ding at 4 and got 1 more minute. Okay, just like that commission. We don't have that little clock that says tick down thing. And double ding at 5. Okay. Double ding at 5. Double ding at 5? Okay, double ding at 5. So what I'm asking is that if you have your questions ready, please don't repeat. I mean, if you want to repeat the question, obviously, to each candidate, okay, but not to the same candidate, because, we want to move along. And they only have 5 minutes, so if you want to ask a question, just like the commissioners, get behind the mic, line up so we can just keep going. And as many people as in line as 5 minutes get to speak. Okay, thanks so much, and
Carol, remind everybody to silence their cell phone.
Oh, yes, please silence your cell phones. Thank you. Okay, we are going to... Going just down there. Yes. We have to step there. Don't fall off.
This is very deceiving here. Okay. Good evening, everybody, and thank you so much for coming. We really appreciate it. All of us, the candidates here, are just delighted to have so many people in the room that are going to participate in the next election. You have term-limited people on the commission, and you're going to have a brand-new commission, possibly, and it's an exciting time. Just a quick little bit about myself. I've been a resident of the city of Fort Lauderdale for 60 years. Matter of fact, my parents met in front of the elbow room at spring break. I'm married to the former Broward County Mayor, John Rodstrom. We raised our 3 children here. I have 3 sons. They're all grown now and successful, I believe, and hope in their own. One of the things I will tell you is that I was your commissioner before, your vice mayor before. I served you all for 6 years, and I enjoyed it thoroughly. So I'm delighted to be back here in front of you again. You're a wonderful group of people, and the beach is very special to me. It always has been. I live right over off of the Isles on Las Olas, and I've spent a lot of time here at the beach growing up. We've navigated through some tough times together, you and I. We've navigated through some economic crisis between 2006 and 2012. And we've also navigated through overdevelopment, rampant growth, and then we had the economic times. So these challenges, I represented you in the City Hall, and I think I did a pretty good job. I tried to listen to all your needs and all your wants and try to make sure you were happy and your quality of life was protected here, especially on the beach. One of the things that I will tell you is now we must navigate again. There are problems in the city of Fort Lauderdale, and although one of my opponents is not here tonight just yet, the other one is, and they have a lot of responsibility for a lot of the things that have gone wrong in the last couple of years. I have to read these notes because there's so many of them. Sewage in our streets and waterways. Everybody's heard of that? Boiled water notices, 1 in 2012, 16 in 2017. Runaway overdevelopment, I don't know if you've seen it or not, but the cranes are back and they're in mass and they're bigger and bigger and bigger. That causes traffic and extreme pressure on our infrastructure system. Mounting debt, years ago it was $549 million, it is now $910 million, the city's debt, and that's without the $200 million bond issue that they want to take out to reimburse themselves for the sewer and water infrastructure things that have been going on. Water rates increase yearly. I don't know if you've noticed or not how much they've increased. A new fee for EMS, not know if you're aware of that or not, that happened at a budget meeting in the middle of the hurricane. A plan to increase the stormwater fees for condos, that we should be watching out for that because that's going to affect many of you in here. 3% pay raise to employees, compounded. That's after 7 years, that's a 21% increase in what you're paying the city employees. Unfilled positions in the police department, but you fund them. So you are basically paying for police that don't exist. If we really truly believe in safety, we need a fully funded and fully staffed police department in the city of Fort Lauderdale. How many minutes do I have? Another couple?
1 minute and a half.
Okay. All right. So my opposition will tell you that I didn't approve a budget. Yes, they're correct. I didn't, because I don't believe in approving a budget that doesn't meet the needs of the people. And I believe you send that budget back to the city manager and you make him sharpen his pencil, and you keep doing that until he gets it right and gets what you want. They will also tell you that safety is the #1 priority. Well, if safety is the #1 priority, then why don't we hire those policemen instead of paying for them and they don't exist? We need those policemen on the street. Crime is on a rise. If you look at the national statistics, we are really in bad shape in Fort Lauderdale. I believe in transparent, ethical, functioning body, and I believe I'll be able to guide this new commission through those hurdles that we're going to be facing. You need a strong, intelligent person. That's 4, right? Yeah. And my record speaks for itself. I want you to feel free to contact me, grab one of the brochures from the back. I'm happy to answer any questions. Like I said, I have been your commissioner and vice mayor for 6 years. I totally enjoyed it. I hope you thought I did a good job, and I hope you're willing to put me back on the city commission as your mayor, because I would love to serve you again. Thank you.
Whoever has questions, please come up to the mic. No questions for Shirley?
Thank you. My name is Pete Heckenblackner. I am a new resident in Fort Lauderdale, and I have to say generally I like what's happening in the community, but all communities have problems and issues that they have to deal with. So I live at Sunrise East, and I think all of you, or many of you, have gotten correspondence from Barbara Wood from Sunrise East. And it's maybe symptomatic of an issue and a question for all of you. How do you balance all of the things that are happening in Fort Lauderdale, and particularly neighborhood issues? We have a neighborhood issue of lack of sidewalks related to building the drawbridge a number of years ago. And we've been trying in some manner to get that issue dealt with for a number of years. So how do you deal with the small stuff like that and the big stuff like the development that's taking place and sewer infrastructure and all of those sorts of things? So it's a question for you, but also for everybody else.
Slowly. Slowly, methodically, with a pure attention to detail. That's all it takes. You can learn a lot by going to the staff, and if you don't want to go to the staff, which a lot of times I don't, I would do my own research. I would go to the state. I would go to the county. I would compare what everyone had to say about our situations. I would ask. I have no problem going to larger governmental entities and asking them to help us out and to be part of our solution rather than part of our problem. So yes, slowly. You navigate through those things slowly. Yes, we have issues that we have to attend to, and we will. The new commission will grab those, gravitate to them, enjoy them, and believe it or not, governing can be hard work, but it's also a lot of fun, because when you do something like I did for Sunrise East when I was your commissioner, for Chuck, the amount of pleasure you get from people that say to you how great of a job you did, and it's for so many people, it's the most rewarding experience you could ever have. But I'm a give back type of a person, so that's probably why I feel like that. So.
Okay, next question.
60% of the people in Fort Lauderdale own bicycles and use them on a regular basis per survey the city paid a lot of money for. They also were quite surprised in 2014 to find out that bicycle safety was even more important to more people than traffic.
Or we need a question?
The question is, what are you going to do about sheriffs? What are you going to do to have linkage and connectivity to make our streets safer if your kids are on bicycles and anybody else who wants to ride one?
Well, Art, I know that you are a huge supporter of bicycles. I myself ride a bicycle as well. I don't ride a go-fast bike, I ride a regular bicycle. And a lot of times I pull my new 2-year-old granddaughter behind my bike. So it is very dangerous out there. And you have mentioned before that we are, what, number 2 or number 3 in the nation for bicycles catastrophes or
6 of the worst places in the United States are in Florida.
Anywhere we can to improve the pathways by which we ride bikes, walk, or do whatever you do that's not in a car, we should. Extending the sidewalks would take some time. You'd have to work with other agencies. As you know, the streets are owned by the county, the city, and the state. I'm willing to work with those agencies to be able to extend the sidewalks into the bike lane and make sure there's a proper buffer between cars and the pedestrians and the bike riders, and a lane that is special for bicycles and a lane that is special for the walkers. Because it's very hard when you're walking or jogging and people are riding bikes. So there has to be more and better areas for people to use their pedestrian ability or use their bicycle or exercise if you're a jogger.
Dean Trangelis, can you add anything to that?
During my turn, I will.
If anyone else wants to speak, she only has 5 minutes, so you have to get up in line.
1 more minute of questions.
Well, one quick question. I realize Commissioner Rostrom did a wonderful job as commissioner when she represented District 2. What I'd like to know is that if you are hopefully our new mayor of Fort Lauderdale, what is your vision for the Barrier Island future development, and what would your vision be to go forward with any future developments here on the Barrier Island?
You know, I think there's probably plenty of development, and a lot of what you see that's the overdevelopment or exceptions that have been given to developers by previous commissions in the past. I was always tagged with being the anti-development, candidate or commissioner, but really I was just more careful. Our code that we follow, the ULDR, is extremely liberal. It was written many, many years ago, and frankly, A liberal code like that allows the developers to go ahead and build what they can build, but other things that they may want, extra height, extra amenities, extra things from the city, those are some things you don't have to approve. And if you are going to approve them, you have to use strong negotiating skills to make sure that the neighborhoods are protected and the other buildings that are next to it. You don't want to have a building going right up in front of another building and blocking the view that somebody lived in for 20 years and that's it, because they want to sell it to some new resident that comes in.
Sure,
I believe
don't
we need
forget.
to take care of Fort Lauderdale first. That's the most important.
Thank you for doing it.
The 5 minutes,
We're running.
I'm sorry. If anybody wants to ask a question of the next candidates, please get in line so we see how many people are asking questions. Because they all have 10 minutes and we won't get.
Okay, this can go to all the candidates when they.
But you have to each ask individual candidate if you want.
She's going to stay there for the next one. And I'll be available afterwards to answer any of the questions that you may want to ask me. Thank you.
Dean Chantelis?
I hope this is a little easier. Can you hear me better now? Okay. Good evening, everybody. My name is Dean Trantalis, your City Commissioner. Hope you're all doing well tonight. First of all, I'd like to pay special thanks to our board and to Karen. Thank you for having this forum for us tonight. I think it's very important for the community to hear their leaders and future leaders and how we're going to move forward and make our city work again. I also want to pay our special respects to John Weaver and his lovely wife, Dr. Elizabeth King, for being able to come here tonight. I know it's taken tremendous fortitude for you to continue to be here, and you've been a great champion for our beach, so thank you so much. It's been a number of years since I've been your commissioner, and I want to thank you for allowing me to continue to work for you and to work on behalf of the community here on the beach. I know we've gone through quite a few issues. I know that we've dealt with issues like traffic and trying to deal with how we overcome the nightmare that we see, especially on certain weekends during the holidays. We've also had infrastructure problems. How many times have we heard that, you know, a manhole has been bubbling up sewage from the streets? It's a terrible thing. In fact, today, I hope this doesn't upset you, but today, have you heard, remember those green slime reports we heard in the canals? Remember we heard about that over the summer? And the city manager told me, well, it's just simply naturally occurring substance. Well, we found out today from the county that that very slime that we've never seen before in the city is a result of the sewage leakage into the intercoastals. It's a terrible thing. So the thing that we have to understand in this community is that we're tired of listening to the lies of the administration. We're tired of being told that you told misinformation, disinformation in order to keep the city moving in a direction that is not in the same direction that the people are asking. You know, I know that Karen talked about how the Bahia Mar was asked to make a presentation tonight, and it didn't happen. So we're going to see it on Tuesday. But we need to take our community back to us. We need to hold back this barrier island. The barrier island is our home. This is not Coney Island. This is a place where people live and where people work and where people come to recreate. But it's a place that we all share. So we all know that one of the main sources of income for our city, of course, is tourism. And that includes the boating industry, the yachting industry. It includes real estate. There's a lot of new real estate being built on the beach. But when you talk about real estate, too often when we depend on real estate as part of our economy, we're pushed to overdevelopment. And we should have smart development, not overdevelopment. We should allow things to take place where there's decay and where buildings that need to be replaced occur on our beach. There's an opportunity for that. But too often, we allow the door to swing wide open and look what we end up with. Well, guess what? We don't have to accept that in our community. Many nights, many meetings, I sit there, 4-1 votes on the lone vote saying no, no. We've got to do better. Our beach, our community, we can do better. When the Bahia Mar came up last time, it was a 4-1 vote. I could not accept that for our beach. We're a happy community. We have a right to be happy and to have a clean, safe, and welcome environment. So our site says, you know, where are bike lanes? Where are the bike lanes? Why can't we ride bikes safely within our city? Why can't we find it easy to live within our city that we're not dodging cars or always wondering when the next building is going to obstruct our view? So, you know, I really thought to myself, I can't continue as a commissioner. I need to be your mayor. I need to take this effort in a new direction. I need to be the one that sets the new tone, the new standard, because I know that people have been screaming for this for the longest time. I've been listening to you. I have been hearing what you had to say. For me, being the people's mayor is the most important thing in our community, and that's what I want to be. I want to be the people's mayor. I'm the one that listens. I'm the one that comes to all the meetings. I'm the one that hears your point of view. And I seek your vote, because on January 16th, which is the day after Martin Luther King, we are going to have that primary. And I hope I can count on you folks. I want to be there with you, and together we can make change in our community. Thank you.
Commissioner, could you just give us an overview of your position on the wave? There's been some editorials in the Sun sitting on. A lot of people in our neighborhoods have been talking about now the bids are coming back and the cost of what initially we thought it was going to be and how it's a big elephant turning into a big elephant.
It definitely is turning into a white elephant. In fact, many people 20 years ago thought, oh, how great it would be to have this charming trolley roaming through our streets, especially in the Flagler Village area. For some reason, the wave never seemed to go in areas where we really needed to relieve traffic congestion. I mean, why didn't we have a trolley coming to the beach where we can relieve traffic congestion? Why didn't we have one going through from the airport to the seaport where we can relieve traffic congestion on 17th Street? Have you ever tried getting out of 17th Street on a weekday, on a weekend, or on a holiday? It's impossible. You feel imprisoned in your own home. I'm against the wave because it's a total boondoggle. It's $100 million a mile. That is a sin that we would commit tax money for that effort. So I'm against the wave. We need to find other ways in which to relieve traffic and to embrace new technologies. They're totally new technologies. We don't need rails in the ground. We don't need wires overhead. And we don't even need drivers anymore. So that's my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean, for that 4-to-1 vote. We appreciate that. And along the lines of development, and I'd like the other gentleman, when you come up to the mic to address, have you or will you accept any funding for your campaign from developers?
I have accepted money from developers, but you know what? I accepted money from the Tate brothers too, and guess what? I voted against them. Because it's not for me where the money comes from, it's where your heart is. And when I see something wrong for the city, I know what's right for our community. You know where most of their money went to? Went to charity, because I didn't need the money. And
thanks for touching on it.
Yeah, thank you.
Hi, Dean. I'm Marty Bilowich. I'm a resident of Lauderdale Beach. Could you speak in the microphone? I'm Marty Bilowich, a resident of Lauderdale Beach. An issue with our neighborhood, which you're probably aware of, has been a problem, is vacation rental owners, especially ones that are not owner-occupied. In 15, the commission passed a vacation rental ordinance. I wouldn't call it perfect, but I think it has improved much more than what was taking place before that. And that also, though, was a 4-to-1 vote where you're the only one that didn't vote for it. And I would say if it didn't happen, our life would be worse than it was. So at this point, would you vote more now to enhance the current provision, keep it as is, reduce it, or eliminate it?
Can I just quickly answer that?
Yes.
Okay, so there were two rounds of vacation rental ordinances. I voted for the first one. And I voted for the first one because I realized how important it was that we restricted the rampant use of homes, and especially on the barrier island. People were using them as party homes, frat houses. It was ridiculous. The second round I didn't vote for because it was enhancing the restrictions when in fact we weren't even enforcing the first round. We had between 1,500 and 1,800 vacation rentals, known vacation rentals in the city of Fort Lauderdale. And guess how many were registered? Guess how many after 2 years were registered and the city was monitoring? Less than 100. So why didn't make more rules when we weren't even enforcing the old rules? So the point was, I had asked the city manager, I said, take the motion back and let's try to find ways to enforce the original rules. And of course, they just feel that they wanted to add more rules to it. And all that did was actually hurt all that actually did was hurt the effort once we look back at it. But anyway.
Thanks, Dean.
Thank you. Okay, I'm done. Sorry.
Bruce Roberts.
Filibuster.
Give 5 minutes, and the first, up to 5 minutes.
Okay.
And I will ring the bell at the end.
If I don't go 5 minutes, do I get more points?
You get more questions.
More questions, okay. Actually, I'd rather have more questions. Good evening, everybody. My name is Bruce Vargas. I'm currently the Vice Mayor of the City of Fort Lauderdale and represent District 1 in the City Commission, have for the past 9 years. For those of you who do not know me, and most of you in this room I see I recognize, but prior to becoming an elected official 9 years ago, I was with our police department for 35 years, and your police chief for 6.5 of those 35 years. I've lived in this community since 1964. When my father retired from the Air Force as a colonel and moved us down at that time, and I grew up with my 3 brothers, went to Cardinal Gibbons High School, raised my family in this city, and have been proud of this city and working for the city and working for you ever since. Just a little war story going back when we first moved down here, there was cows grazing at Dixie and Commercial Boulevard. That's how far back this goes. There was no bridge over the Intracoastal Commercial Boulevard. So I've seen a lot, as a lot of you have seen over the years as this city has developed. I worked the spring break on the beach, and the times they haven't changed on the beach from those spring break days. I have a picture in my office right now that shows the 300,000 to 400,000 college students on spring break on the streets, and how we had to block them off. And quite frankly, those days we used to have pitched battles on the street as a police department. You had the students trying to turn over buses. But I have to admit, prior to doing that, I was a spring breaker myself. So I saw both sides of that event. But I have a long history working for the city of Fort Lauderdale, and that's my passion. And I'm here to ask you to vote for me on January 16th as your mayor to continue, I think, the positive momentum going on in the city of Fort Lauderdale right now. And I want to continue that positive momentum. We do have issues. We have headwinds. We're working on those. We're working on those right now. And one of those, and one of my top 3 priorities happens to be the infrastructure. I put the city manager, city attorney on probation at the end of August, working with our Budget Advisory Board and Infrastructure Task Force to get things done. We had the money, we had 13 top priorities we had to get done in infrastructure. In the March memo that was given to us by our Public Works Department, we weren't getting it done. So in August, I said, let's get this thing done. They have 6 months to prove it. Now they've come up with a program, it's called Go Big, Go Fast. You'll see that on our webpage, and every week, as I require them to, they're providing a weekly summary of the progress that's being made. It shows the amount of money that's being spent, and actually gets into the linear footage of lines that's being laid each week, and the due dates and who's managing those particular projects. So you'll see that on that webpage. And I'm here to tell you one of our major ones we had to deal with was the overflow we had in Tarpon River. That line will be done next week. It'll be back in line again. That one line handles 30% of the sewage in the entire city of Fort Lauderdale. That'll be completed next week. And you'll see the trucks that are going from place to place to move the sewage. That'll be eliminated for the most part at that point in time. And contrary to what you may see in the newspapers and other articles, those trucks will be used in that project at any rate at any time. It's not because of the overflow itself. That project, the engineering style requires those trucks to keep the sewage system moving and to move it from place to place that can handle that overage. So I can go on and on, and I encourage you to look at our webpage, and that infrastructure's there. And also our top priority, needless to say, is going to be public safety. We can't have a viable community, a safe community where people can live and enjoy, raise families, recreate, and have jobs come to this area unless you have a safe community. We have a very safe community, and thank God for our police department, our fire and rescue department, the work they do. During the past 2 years, we've added 25 new police officers to the positions on the police department, and at the end of this year, we have added 27 new firefighter and paramedics to the fire and rescue department to cope with those issues. We've given our police officers training this week now with body cams. We always try to give them the best equipment they can have. We're finishing up the fire bomb with the new stations. The fire rescue stations, we're putting Fire Station Rescue 8 out in by the Rio Vista area. That'll be completed, I think, within 2 more years. And then we're downsizing some of our fire rescue operations because most of the calls they handle
80% of those calls are medical calls. So we're going to go down just to rescue units and have this rescue unit at a smaller facility, like a house, for example, size of a facility like that. We don't need to spend money on all that other apparatus. So that's another big one of my priorities is going to be that. And the other is going to be economic development. Continue to move forward in the city of Fort Lauderdale to make us a viable and competitive city that we are right now. 25,000 jobs came to this area alone this past year in the city of Fort Lauderdale. 25,000 new jobs. The unemployment rate in the Great Recession when I was elected with Rogers and Seiler 9 years ago was over 12%. It's down to 3.3% unemployment rate in the city of Fort Lauderdale. The economy is being diversified. And I also have to say, I want to get a stick in here. We now have landed the boat show for 30 more years in the city of Fort Lauderdale, that contract we have with Bahia. 30 more years. And that last boat show that we had 2 years ago was a revenue of $857 million. That's equivalent to more than 2 Super Bowls. It's the greatest single revenue-producing event in the state of Florida. That's my time.
Questions?
Questions? I can go on, but thank you very much.
Commissioner, you took $5,000 from Jimmy Tate's team. Dean Tertellis took $5,000. You were all for 40 stories high.
Question, Art.
Hey, I'm going to make my statement.
Question. It's only question.
It's 450, hey,
Ask a question.
450 feet by 40 feet, 40 stories high is very high. Dean Tertellis had a better idea. He thought it should be 29 stories high. What's this all about? I mean,
Ask the question.
paid for it?
Put it in a question.
If you're asking if I'm corrupt, the answer is obviously no. And I've told you many times, don't put that out here. If you have any issues or think that I am corrupt, anybody on the commission is corrupt, bring it to the authorities to investigate. I stand as an open book and an honest broker for all my life. And I think Dean answered your question as it relates to taking money. Yeah, may have taken some money from developers or a lobbyist, but we also take it from the community. Look at my record, look what's published on our website where my contributions come from. And I'm proud of that broad-based contribution. That means I can bring a team together to get things done. My opponent, Dean, had talked about he's always the lone vote. There's 5 votes up there. Becoming mayor, you still only have 1 vote. You have to be able to build a coalition of people to work together to get jobs done. And I've proven that over my career.
There's not even a bike lane in front of this building.
Art, that's
Okay.
There's no bike lane.
Okay, next.
And I apologize for that with Art, because he comes to the commission meetings and asks the same questions over again. And I've known Art for a long time. God bless Art. He has a lot of good ideas. And I just wish they were presented.
Hey, Bruce, don't waste your
Thank
time.
you.
Go ahead, Craig.
Vice Mayor Roberts, thank you for coming this evening. So, it's very concerning to us here. About
Ask a question, Craig.
The question is, what is your vote going to be on Tuesday regarding the Bahia project? Because I think that as we sit here tonight, we're very concerned, and I just like to know.
Can I ask you a question? Because we have other questions here, and I'm willing to take more questions on. I can belabor one for a long time, I'll only answer one. But however, I think that as we go through this, the 3rd rendition, I'm aware with the Bahia project. And as a matter of fact, this one now is more tied into the boat show. That's what I related to. The fact that this thing was developed and designed and built to accommodate the boat show. And we just received a letter. It will be discussed again at the commission meeting from Informa, who runs the boat show, the new owners of that, supporting the development of the EMR because they have that contract with 30 more years to go. Now, because of sunshine law violations, I am not about to tell you how I'm going to vote on that. I cannot do that. I will not do that in this here. But I can tell you, we did get that support letter. That'll be in the backup. And I can also tell you that the Planning and Zoning Board approved this rendition by a 6-3 vote.
David?
Okay, thank you. The mayor has the power to change its staff. What would you do to change, if any, of the staff in the city?
Well, as I indicated to you earlier, I have put the city manager and the city attorney, joining them at the hip on probation to deal with this infrastructure issue. Because I was tired of them pointing out, one has this money, one doesn't have that, who gave me the stock and didn't sign off on that. So yes, I'm going to see how they do on that particular issue. Again, I'm a little concerned based on sunshine issues where I might go, but I have held people, I've held people accountable my entire career in the police department. And those ladies and gentlemen back there will verify that. People have a job to do, they have a job to do. Will people make mistakes? Yes. If you don't make a mistake once in a while in your life, you're not doing your job, or you're afraid to act. You need to be able to empower people to do their jobs. That's what team building is about. And you need to be able to make a mistake, admit to the mistake, move forward, and not repeat that mistake in the future.
but I do hold people accountable.
Commissioner, if elected mayor, how will you deal with the perception of a conflict of interest on voting on matters when it pertains to the police department? Since even though the chief apparently, I believe, answers the city manager, but yet you have direct communications with the city manager to keep that conflict.
Oh, I appreciate that.
Transparency, and it's not a loaded question.
No, it's not a loaded question.
Other officials how to deal with that.
No, based on the fact by state law, by state statute, and based on ethics opinions, the fact that I can vote on matters related to the police department and have and will continue to do so. The fact that it impacts so many people. If I was the sole benefit, or maybe 10 people were the sole benefit of a vote related to the police department that I make, then that would be an issue. But because it impacts over 500 sworn officers and about 200 civilian officers on the police, civilian employees in the police department, that broad base dilutes that impact of me getting any private gain from that. And that's a statutory requirement and an state ethical requirement that I'm adhering to in that regard. And if I ever have any doubt, I will ask our city attorney for an opinion on that before I vote. And I will also, if I have time to, ask the State Ethics Commission on whether that is a viable, legal option and an ethical option to do. And I have done that.
I'd like to ask the candidates will you be staying after the meeting for questions?
Yes, if you're serving here.
Right. Will everyone or no? Okay, just so you know that afterwards you can ask some more questions if you don't get your question. Okay, George?
Thank you. Good evening. My name is George Castro-Taro, and I'm one of the 5 candidates running for District 2 Commissioner. Many of you know me already. I'm an attorney here in Fort Lauderdale, a small business owner actually. I own a law firm downtown. I've lived here in Fort Lauderdale for about 15 years, and I purchased my first home here. Fort Lauderdale will be my home because it's one of the most magnificent places I've ever had the opportunity to visit, and now I get to call it the place that I live. I'm deeply committed to Fort Lauderdale, and I believe that as a commissioner, I possess some very unique talents and skills that would qualify me most as compared to my colleagues up here on the table. To start with, I spent about 10 years in the state of Florida Department of Health managing and leading health department programs. That experience gave me some really unique insight into how to deal with state and local government. I spent about 10 years working for the National American Red Cross, overseeing disease preparedness and bioterrorism programs. Following my career in public health, I decided to become an attorney. So I went to law school at night, worked during the day, and eventually graduated. When I graduated, it was during the economic collapse, and I decided it was a good time to open a law firm to try to help people. My law firm deals with people who are in real life crises, whether they're facing bankruptcy, divorce, or the loss of a loved one with probate. We're dealing with these crises all the time, and I think the skills that I have, combining my experience in public health with my experience as an attorney, make me uniquely qualified. In addition to my work professionally, I also have some pro bono activities that I participate in. I've litigated a number of high-profile cases, including several against the city of Fort Lauderdale. I've also represented parties who are affiliated with cities, including Sunny Isles and several others. I'm also on the board of directors of Care Resource, which is one of the largest healthcare providers in the city, actually in the county and including Miami-Dade. And I'm also a licensed pilot. What I've learned through all my skills is that with any situation or problem, you have to keep the big picture in mind. And the big picture here is that we have some problems. We have some problems that we definitely need to tackle. I think all the commissioner candidates, and including the mayoral candidates, are going to talk to you about the same issues. We're going to talk to you about the fact that our infrastructure is crumbling. We have to rebuild that infrastructure. We have to sort of identify, almost like a triage approach, what we need to do first needs to be the biggest issue, and we need to tackle that quickly so we can move on to the next. Beyond the infrastructure issues we face, I talk to everyone. It doesn't matter what part of the town I'm in, everyone tells me the same thing. The traffic here is abysmal. The traffic here interferes from people getting from place to place, and it prevents us from being able to conduct business, to visit loved ones, and just get around. I live in Lake Ridge, and where I live, sometimes it takes me 15 minutes to get to a location that should take, 5 minutes to get to. And there are things that can be done, and they aren't necessarily expensive. They just require some clever thinking and some collaboration. Beyond the issue of the traffic, we have to zero in on the environment. Our environment is our most important resource. On the beach especially, we have so many treasured things here, and if we don't protect our environment, we face the loss of those things. So, you know, if I were to be asked, the question came up, I would certainly never vote for the BEMR project. I think that it's detrimental to our beach, and I think it's detrimental to our city. I think that we need to also tackle housing. And on the beach, it's not so much of an issue, but when I say tackle housing, I mean affordable housing, so that there are opportunities for people to live in our city who may not necessarily have the income to live in some of our communities. I also think that our city lacks a social service infrastructure. A city of the size of Fort Lauderdale doesn't spend any money at all on social services. We rely entirely on the county and the state to provide those services. And that's why we have so many homeless problems, and that's why we have so many substance abusing issues, because we're not actually taking a proactive role. So I believe across the board there are a tremendous number of opportunities that someone in the position of commissioner could take, tackle, and accomplish, and I'm the person to do that. My name is George Castrotaro, and I'm running for District 2. Please visit my website at gc4ftl.com. Thank you.
Questions for George? Anybody have questions for George? No questions? Stephen?
Yes. Good evening, beach neighbors. My name is Steve Glassman. It's a pleasure to be here on the beach. I actually live on the beach, and I think I know most of the people in this room. For those of you that I have not had the pleasure of meeting, I actually served for 7 years as the president of this organization, the Central Beach Alliance. I've served on several city boards and county boards, including the Planning and Zoning Board. I was one of the 3 people that Vice Mayor Roberts referenced when he said that 3 people voted against the Bahia, the Planning and Zoning Board. I was one of those 3. We can get into that later if there are any questions, and I'll be happy to explain why. I am deeply rooted in the neighborhood. I've lived here on the Barrier Island for 20 years, and for almost that entire time I have fought for all of the issues that we have fought for together as a neighborhood. Not only are we the economic engine of Fort Lauderdale, and probably Broward County, but we are a neighborhood. And we always have to find that balance, and that's something that I always worked for when I was the president of this organization, to make sure that we lived in harmony with the business interests, the hoteliers, and we understood that there was that balance. One of the things that I'm most proud of when I served as the president of the Central Beach Alliance was that we actually got the city to require that the DRC process, where all development begins, is requiring that all projects go to the neighborhoods for input. Before that, we didn't have a voice, and that's one of the reasons that I got so involved in the Central Beach Alliance, because I am a neighborhood activist. I've worked with many of the condominiums represented in this building right here this evening, and I cannot think of anything more important than to speak on behalf of your neighbors for every issue that faces the beach. We've heard a lot about infrastructure this evening, and we probably will throughout the next few weeks. I want you to know that it's well and good that everyone's coming to the table now and talking about infrastructure. I believe that infrastructure became an issue in this city because of a group that I started working with 2 years ago called Lauderdale Tomorrow. We actually, thank you, you're aware of that group. 2 years ago, we were not getting straight answers from the city in terms of what's happening with the pipes breaking and the sewage spilling into our waterways and on our yards. We were not getting the proper answers, and we went deep into the research. And we made an issue of it, and we created petitions. Many of you signed that. We had over thousands of people signing 2 different petitions. You're well aware of that. They were dismissed. They were not taken up by the city commission, but an amazing thing happened. The city paid attention. They created a blue ribbon infrastructure task force that now has brought such incredible attention and light to the issue that everyone's on the bandwagon. So that's a terrific thing. And that came from grassroots neighborhood activism, again, which is something that I am all about. What do I want to see for the future, and why am I running? We're going to have a clean slate up there, and folks, I'm telling you right now, as a resident of the beach, this is do or die time. If we don't do this now, we might as well all just lie on our chaise lounge and have a great time and just sip a cocktail all day. because this is her last chance to make a difference on the city commission. And if you don't believe it, just take that chance, and you'll see what I'm talking about. We have got to change the direction and reprioritize the budget issues. For those of you that don't know, we've taken $106 million over the last 5 years. That was your water and sewer fees, and we've used it in other areas of the budget. Ridiculous. We're paying those fees. In fact, many of you in condos here are paying twice as much for water as a single-family homeowner in the rest of the city. Why? You fill your bathtub, why should you pay twice as much money to fill your bathtub than a person in a single-family home? And if we're not careful, the city's going to revert to a whole different process in terms of our stormwater rates, and you'll pay 4 times as much as a single-family homeowner for your stormwater rates. Luckily, the tune is changing on the city commission, and it looks like that's not going to happen. But that's only because of pressure from those of us that have been complaining about it in City Hall. So that's an accomplishment. What do I want to see going forward? I want to see us become a smarter city. I want to see us attract young families with children to our district. What does that mean? We need to speak up about education. Our schools are failing in the East. All of the good schools get the money and the attention in the West. Fort Lauderdale is the biggest donor of money to the Board of Education, and we get the least for it. We have 40% of the failing schools with only 7% of the student population. That's ridiculous. It starts with education. I used to be a teacher in a former life for 20 years, and education is very important. That's where it all begins. I want to see us attract smart arts and technology industry. Grow flag village a little bit in our district. Attract industry. We don't do enough in terms of economic development in the city. That has got to change. We have got to do more in terms of crime. We have to be smarter. We have to have license plate recognition. We have to have facial recognition. Our technology is behind the times, just like the wave. And that's another thing we can talk about later. It's a matter of time. I apologize. I could go on for hours. We know. Sorry. I apologize. I get very passionate.
Glassman, how do you feel about meetings that go on to 1 o'clock or 3 o'clock in the morning? In one case, a lady was at City Hall for 9 hours and she died a day later.
Yes, I believe that she actually lived, I apologize, at Leisure Beach. Yes, a very sad situation. That meeting went on past 3 o'clock in the morning. Outrageous, it's ridiculous. They were going to take that up, I believe, in the county, and then they dodged it. I think we can do better. Maybe we move some of the ceremonial issues and the presentations and stuff. Maybe you schedule another day and you just do all of that and you get right into the business at night. It's very unfair. Some might be cynical and think it's a strategy. You know, you have a big project like Bahia, Galleria, and you don't get to it till 1 o'clock in the morning. So you might have 150, 200 people show up at City Hall, and by the time you get to it on the agenda, there's no one left. Maybe that's a strategy. I don't know. I think it's an awful thing. We need to do that much earlier in the evening, and maybe even schedule another commission meeting during the month and do all of the presentations and the awards and everything else.
Thank you for thinking about it. That's more than some people that were on the dais did.
Thank you, Art. I can't believe it. That's Art Sites. He used to bash me all the time, but it's okay now. It's good. It's good. You know, you live long enough, you see everything.
Amen.
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable.
Climate change.
What?
Regarding the EMR, I realize that it's a moot point to bring this up because unfortunately you would not be the commissioner that would be voting on Tuesday regarding this project. But when you were on the planning and zoning, going forward as commissioner for District 2, how do you feel about a development like the EMR? Please share that with us.
Very quickly, and I'll be happy to go into detail because it will take a while. I voted against the BPMR. I think it totally violates the intent of the zoning. The zoning is SBMHA, South Beach Marina Hotel area. That is public land, the most iconic piece, the most valuable piece of land that we have left as citizens that we own. 653 apartments does not serve a public purpose on public land. Vice Mayor Roberts mentioned the boat show and how happy they are. I'm going to beg to disagree. I think they are happy because they're contractually bound to say they support the project, and they can't say that they don't like it. But here's my prediction. They're not going to be happy surrounded by 15 buildings on this peninsula. 15 buildings. 653 apartments. Where's the boat show going to go? In the garage? Is that what people are used to go in a boat show? In the garage? Here's my prediction. They're going to have to take over our parking lot across the street, and for a month, no one's going to be able to park there because the boat show's going to say, you know what? We want some fresh air. We want our tents. Our people are used to walking around the beach and seeing the water. They don't want to be locked in a garage. So I think they've been silent and supportive because they're contractually bound to be supportive of the project. I don't think it's going to work, and I don't think it fits the intent of the zoning. And when they say that apartments are allowed on the site, I believe if you look deep into the original lease, those apartments are supposed to be crew apartments. Apartments for people that are on the boats, not sold as condominiums or rented as apartments. It's awful. I really hope the city commission votes no. You should all go there and just, last night I was at a wonderful event at the Venetian. Thank you, Shirley, and the people at the Venetian. You look out at those beautiful views and you look at this peninsula and you say, are they out of their mind? 15 buildings with a wall on A1A on a blind curve as you come around the corner. We got to do better, folks. We have to be smarter, we have to think, and we have to attract the best and the brightest. I hope I have your vote on January 16th.
Chad?
I'm actually not going to use the microphone. I have always had a loud voice. That's part of who I am. I actually live in a townhouse with 3 stories, and my girlfriend yells at me. I can still hear you from the top floor when I'm in the basement trying to make calls and things. But I'm here to talk to you and tell you a little about who I am, because I know I'm a newer face here and a younger face. My name is Chad Maxey. I'm a West Point graduate. I did 10 years in the Army. I served in Iraq and Afghanistan, and most recently I was with the Brightline train team and helped build the Brightline station here in Fort Lauderdale, West Palm, and Miami Beach. But I left that company to run for office, and for me, Fort Lauderdale is the community that I chose when I left the Army. I'm the son of an Army veteran who was actually an Army chaplain and served for 30 years. And so all my life I've moved around. I had moved 12 times before I graduated high school, and then I moved another dozen times after I left. And when I got out of the Army in 2014, I said, you know what? I'm not moving again. I'm going to find the place that I want to live. And so I actually came down to Florida, and I lived in 5 different cities. I rented a vacation rental for 1 month in each city, at St. Petersburg, Tampa, Jacksonville, Miami, and Fort Lauderdale. And what I did in each, I didn't look for a job. I literally just walked the streets. I looked at the communities. I learned what was going on, tried to figure out what the feel of the city was, because I was an infantry officer and I was used to doing a lot of walking. And when I got to Fort Lauderdale, this was my 5th city, and I was going to continue going. But when I got here, within 2 weeks of being here, I knew in my gut this is where home was, and this is where I wanted to raise a family. And the reason is because we have such an incredibly unique diversity here. Age, races, sexual orientation, all of that exists here in Fort Lauderdale. And we have incredible economic development, and oh, by the way, the beach is really nice too, right? So at the end of the day, this is where I want to have my community be, and I've dedicated myself to that. And I'm part of several organizations that give back to the community. I'm part of a young leader development organization called New Leaders Counseling. We have over 150 fellows, young progressives that actually want to make a difference in this community. And I promise you, my generation does. I do want to tell a story about my time in Iraq. I was there in Iraq, and this is my 2nd tour. And in my 2nd tour, the violence, it was after the surge, and the violence had gotten to a place where we could start doing stuff where we were rebuilding infrastructure. And so I actually worked with USAID and State Department, and they told us to start building projects. So we went out to the city government, I went to the mayor, the city council, the public works engineers, and then we went and did town halls. And we said, hey, we're ready to fund some infrastructure project for you. You guys just have to come up with what you agree with as the priority list. And as you can imagine, what happens in this city and happens in all cities. They started arguing. The city council president hated the mayor, right? The public works engineers just thought that they were all stupid and didn't understand what the city really needed. And then the locals, the communities, the tribal leaders were like, hey, we have our own concerns for our own communities. And so they argued. And I did a city council meeting for 8 hours every Sunday. And then I went and did a town hall after that. And we did this for 6 months. And I sat there with my State Department counterparts, and I was like, I don't know if we're going to get anything done. And one day I walked in there, and the city council president walked up to me with a piece of paper and said, this is the list. And what I learned from that, and why I bring it up, is developments like the Bahia, right? It takes time. You got to build consensus. And what hasn't happened with the development in this city is consensus, right? We need to do charrettes. I worked in development and finance. I helped build the station here. The reality is we need to do charrettes for the communities. I have serious reservations about the amount of retail that they're putting in. They're putting in more retail here than we did in our mining station that's 6 city blocks. I'm also have significant concerns about the residential portion, because you know what? That's essentially selling the land. We own this land as a city. And if we put residents on there, we no longer own the land. It's going to have a voting block that essentially prevents us from ever being able to control that and use it for another source. I agree with my colleague up there that at the end of the day, this was not the intended use. This is a hotel. So the other thing is we got to get after sea level rise. And these guys are all talking about infrastructure. I want to set up a fund to not just address today's infrastructure problem, but to tomorrow's problems of sea level rise. Because that's going to affect, I'm 35, and that's going to affect our...
Questions?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you very much for serving our country and preserving our freedoms. We need to do more for our veterans, and we have a problem here with a lot of homeless people, and that's another question. But of the Utility Comprehensive Master Plan, about 839 pages. Have you reviewed any of that? And have you taken the time to address in your mind, or maybe made notes, how we go forward with this? Because there was the first 135 pages are literally frightening about how fragile our sewer system is in the city. And as far as clean water goes, the city is constantly taking one fund into another. So how would you do that?
So I will tell you that one of the things I will commit to you is that at the end of the day, everyone up here on this stage is going to tell you that we're going to fix the infrastructure problem. But the reality is nobody up here is an engineer. I went to West Point, which is an engineering school, but I don't have an engineering degree. I did rebuild infrastructure in Iraq, and what I know about rebuilding infrastructure is that you can't do it all at once. Right? You have to take off one pipe at a time. You gotta do it slowly. So what we really need to have is an enduring funding source that's part of the millage and that's dedicated to infrastructure over the course of the next decades and into the future to start addressing this sea level rise. I am committed to making sure, I'm a finance guy, and what I'm going to do is look at the numbers and make sure that the people with the PhDs and the engineers, Alan Dodd, who's a West Point graduate as well, served in the special operations unit I did in Afghanistan. He knows how to rebuild the infrastructure of the city. I promise you that. But he needs a funding source to do it. And additionally, with sea level rise, we don't all know all the right ideas yet. We don't. And Miami Beach has started taking some leadership roles in that. But look, we're about to have a summit here in a couple weeks. And what we need to start doing is funding these good ideas, taking leadership, because at the end of the day, if we start figuring out how to address and seal off our system from stormwater and from sea level water, guess what? We'll be able to export that to other communities, just like Holland and these other places do. And we'll be able to be the leaders in the United States. And more importantly, I worked on the Congressional Appropriations Committee. And what I'll tell you is that the federal government is not going to come down here and look at our beach and say, hey, you know what? We're going to start a federal program here. No, they're looking for grassroots, community-led leadership that creates programs that work. And when we get it to work, guess what? Broward County's going to pitch in, then the state's going to pitch in, and then you're going to get the federal level grants, because they're going to exploit and expand on success. Hope that answers your question. I'll listen to your question and I'll answer it later.
Right. Thank you for your service. Right. Hey, thank you for your service. St. Petersburg is building a wonderful new pier. The Beach Redevelopment Advisory Board voted 8-1 or 9-0 a few years ago to build a pier here. They looked around, it just didn't move. The mayor liked the idea and it just died. There's some terrific piers here that have been renovated. If you go to Deer...
Question on?
Yeah, the question is how would you go about doing that? Do you think it's a good idea to build a pier?
Well, what I will tell you is that we have more urgent infrastructure needs in the city. And so when it comes to building the pier with city money, I don't think we should. Now, what I will say is
would be beach money.
I actually am a huge proponent of public-private partnerships. The 595 Circle Lane, I've actually studied it. I've met with Jim Wolf, who actually did that project. He's the FDOT secretary now in Miami. He used to be for here. I'm a huge proponent of that. And I think there is ways that we can start doing things like a pier project and like other things like that, where we bring in private financing, and then, you know, maybe there's a long-term lease with the city or a ground lease in which we can actually, you know, build a project and grow. But we got to get away from just tax and bond, tax and bond. Those days of being able to do that continuously are over. We got to look at other ways to start growing our city, making sure that we're the city of the future, and we keep this great diversity of young and old people who just continue to want to live here.
Good evening, folks. My name is Tim Smith. I'm very happy to be here, mostly because I'm always happy to be at the beach, and I think you all are. I want to thank Karen and the Central Beach Alliance for having this forum. I think it's wonderful. You all always do this. I think it's atrocious that you were not given the Bahia proposal before it's being voted on, and I think that needs to be corrected.
Well, they did come before us, but we just wish we would have had a longer period of time.
Well, that's right.
Have
They
our
should
input.
have come to you in advance and taken your positions into account. I wanted, before I started, I want you all to meet the love of my life for 40 years who agreed to come tonight, and that's my wife Cindy, who's in the back. Honey, you have to stand up. She said, I know Steve says she's a saint, 40 years. Well, she comes, she says she'll come if she can sit in the back row, and she usually ditches out by now, but thank you for staying at least for my speech. Okay, you want to know why I'm the best choice to be your commissioner. That's why you're here, right? Who is the best choice? I have some serious competition up here. I think I'm the best choice, and I'm going to tell you why in just a minute. But I thought I would take a personal moment to give you a story of my beach roots, because I have those. Because when I was just 20-something, I was living in Maryland, and it was 22 degrees, and I hopped in my little Toyota Celica and told my parents I was going to Florida. They said, you just left college, you're supposed to get a career. I said, you know, later. So I wandered down to Florida, and for some reason I made a left on Sunrise Boulevard. And I didn't know what Sunrise Boulevard was, but it looked like let's go to the ocean. So I came down, I wandered right down into this part where the strip was, where they said the action was. And I saw a little sign on a motel, $50 a week room. So I don't think you can get that anymore. So I went up, it looked a little rough, but I was young, and I rented that $50 a week room. I looked in my wallet, I realized I had $230 left, so I could afford it. So I figured I better get a job quick. Walked up onto the Fort Lauderdale beach, there was a sign, waiter needed. It was at the Lauderdale Beach Hotel. 25 years later, I was brokering a compromise between the historic preservation folks, who wanted to save the beautiful historic hotel, and the developer that wanted to knock it down. So I think this is fortuitous. So it'll just take me one more minute. So I go back home to my little tiny motel room. A couple days later, there's a knock on the door, and there's a real well-dressed man there. And he said, excuse me, I own this motel. And I said, you know, I paid Guido $50 on Wednesday. And he said, no, I know. They just hauled him out of here. He was part of that heroin ring on the beach. I said, I had nothing to do with that. He said, we know, but would you like the job of managing this hotel? And he had a box of keys. And I said, this is one funny place, this Fort Lauderdale. So I took the job, and it wasn't long before, I know you're shocked, but somebody else bought it, decided to knock it down and redevelop it. But that was my first experience in Fort Lauderdale. But you're going to ask me, why am I the candidate to be your commissioner? Now, I was your commissioner from 1997 to 2003. 6 years on the commission, you learn a lot. I, by far, have the most experience in the city government, and I know my way around it. Secondly, I have a certain reputation in town, and I see some of my friends from around town I'm really a guy that gets things done. And you need things done here because we can do better for you at the beach. And I'm going to explain what I mean by that in a minute. So there are low-hanging fruit, things like the cleanliness of the beach. It's not clean enough. You have light bulbs out. You have homeless sleeping on the beach. You have the Covenant House causing problems. You have development parcels, even one that the city owns, that look terrible and the fences are falling down. Turtle lighting, it's too dark in a lot of areas. Spring break, we have to make certain it's controlled if it comes back. You have areas without sidewalks that come from a nice, beautiful condominium. It's wrong. Then we got to get into the difficult things. The traffic, the transit. I want to tell you lastly, I am the only commissioner that proposed and was able to enact a building moratorium here on the beach. Some of you weren't here for that. But we stopped everything for 6 months. We changed all the rules. We brought the height down 20%, increased the setback, required bigger trees, and that sort of thing. Lastly, because I think I got 10 seconds, I'm very happy to report that my police friends are in the back. They have endorsed me, the Fraternal Order of Police, because I'm a crime and safety guy, and I want to make certain you're very safe in your community. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Yeah, Tim, my name is Bob Mandel. I have just one question for you.
Yes.
You were one of the people that I think was well in front of the project on 13th Street. Is that correct or incorrect?
Yes,
okay.
absolutely.
Everybody up here talks about traffic. And Dean, I questioned you on this one time, and you were on board with this, but I like you. I'm going to vote for you, but this we don't agree on. I understand trying to make things better. I haven't seen a bicycle there, by the way. I go by there twice to 3 times a week. The question I have is, what was the real reason? You please correct me, because I don't want to think that you're a bad guy. I don't know you at all.
I'm not a bad guy.
Okay.
I'm a really good guy.
I know you own land there, and your son has a business there.
Sure.
What was the reason? And secondly, you put up a roundabout. Nobody in Fort Lauderdale knows how to
What's
drive
the
a
question?
roundabout. It's 15 miles an hour. Why? Why did you do it? Why did you bring it up? And how did you get it approved? And spend our money on it. A lot of money.
All right, first off, I didn't spend your money because, at least city money, it was all county money, it was a grant. My wife and I moved into that area in 1985. It was the worst area. You wouldn't even drive in that area in those days. There was murders in that area. There was drug dealing. It was a terrible, scary, nasty place. I've spent the last 25 years of my life working to improve that area. It's finally becoming a decent place. I'm very proud of it. Now, I know my very best friend that lives south of the river. He hates me for that road because he said, I used to fly through there 60 miles an hour. And I say, no, Cal, you can't do that anymore. We have built a community over there. Now, it's taking a little work to get people used to driving a roundabout, but I think it's going to work in the long run. And so I am so proud of that. For any of you that knew that part of town, were too afraid to drive over there, please come back, take a new look. We have new restaurants opening,
Tim,
bars
as
opening.
a follow-up, just one thing. There's speed limits there.
No, one question. I'm sorry. Art's got to speak. There's one question.
Well, these guys got 10 questions already to every person here.
I've stood up.
Tim,
Hello, Art.
hi. You're really famous in Fort Lauderdale. No one in the history of Fort Lauderdale as a commissioner has built more monstrosities, huge buildings.
Question, Art.
How did you justify the Capri is 660 feet long and 24 stories high? What were you thinking when you voted for that?
When I became the commissioner of the beach, we had the candy store with the belly flop contest and the wet t-shirt contest. We had the Holiday Inn where they had the,
I'm asking you about the Capri.
Art, I'd like to answer your question. Now, Art and I have a long history. Art sued me for $3 million after I left. Yes, he did.
Bullshit.
Art,
Didn't happen.
Teddy, there's no swearing at this meeting, and you'll be escorted out now.
So,
I'm serious. Don't answer back, Tim.
no.
No swearing. Officers, please leave, Art. Please leave. I'm serious, please leave. There's no swearing at these meetings. Officers will take you out.
So it'll be easier to finish the question with Art sitting down, so I'll try to do that. I am proud of what the beach has become from the old days, but we can do better. That's why I gave you that list of things that we need to accomplish at the beach. And I can help you do that. if I'm lucky enough to get your vote on January 16th. I promise you that. Thank you.
Lester? Lester, you're up.
I'm going to take a little bit of my time and just say that I'm a strong believer in the freedom of speech, also a strong believer in courtesy. It needs to be a balance. This is your organization, and it's your right to do as you wish.
There'll be no swearing or
And the warning was well taken. So moving forward, I have a presentation that a very good friend of mine composed for me after getting to know me over a period of 15 years. So I want to share it with you, and hopefully it will relate to how my life experience prepared me to be your city commissioner. First thing, I volunteered and served for 3 years in the military. My training was a combat engineer. I was not an engineer, but my training was a combat engineer. To basically work on large projects. Getting back to the moment that when I joined the military, this gentleman, he took an oath to protect the Constitution from foreign and domestic threats to our way of life. So I'm a little upset at the moment. Let me get on. I was privileged to have 2 assignments as a combat engineer that my captain felt I was worthy enough to be forwarded to. Following my service, I worked for the city of Chicago, tutoring accounting. Cities are based on 2 fundamental things, infrastructure and budgets. I also had 3 SEC licenses, which I relinquished after 6 years. Absolutely no complaints. And I was in it during a big financial era. For 25 years, I ran a specialty retail store in downtown Chicago. So I'm very well acquainted with commerce. My sales team and I, we won national awards and regional awards for sales achievement. And that was just the ability to maintain a team and move it forward in one direction. With success from my retail operation, I got involved in urban redevelopment in the south side of the Loop. It went so well that right now it's one of the premier areas in Chicago. The reason I'm mentioning the city that I lived in over 20 years ago is because they have all the fundamental problems that you are about to face as you grow, as we grow, because I'm not moving, I'm staying here. For 19 years, I've been a resident and a homeowner here. In 2006, I obtained my community association license, and I opened up a community association management company. I'm rooted here. I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to skip a variety of things and go to the end. My goal will be to secure a legacy for our future by focusing on the preservation of our land and assets with careful and well-planned integration of construction and commercial projects. But my priority is you, the residents of the city that we love, because I'm here to apply for your job as city commissioner. Thank you very much for your time.
David? Yeah,
Very good, thank you.
Mr. Zaluski, you say you want to help the community in your advertisements. How have you helped your association that you live in within the last 2 years?
Within the last 3 years,
2 years?
within the last 2 years, I filed an arbitration with the state of Florida because it truly believed that we have a rogue board of directors that are not abiding by the condo laws. In Fort Lauderdale, you have something called the city charter. When your representatives do not abide by the city charter, you have the right to question them in state law, federal law, and in local law. I have helped my association by giving power back to the association owners by filing that arbitration here, and we'll leave it to the state of Florida to decide how valid it is.
That's interesting. I didn't hear about that. I know of 2 police reports filed and many complaints of your unprovoked harassing of another family in our building. Do you feel that somebody like this is qualified for public service?
In Kevin's absence, we have one question. We're not supposed to be making statements. Are there anybody else who wants to ask questions?
This is obviously the president of my association.
I want to thank everybody for being here. Ask questions to the candidates, and I think they all agreed to wait here, be around for a while, so we thank all of you for being here again. Thank you.
Everyone, hi, before we end, excuse me, sorry, I was in the back of the room. Before we conclude, I want to thank everybody for coming. I hope we see all our members at the party next week on the 6th, and if you haven't joined, please, you can join up that night, but, please come and have a very good time and festive. The candidates, if you go out to the lobby, the bar's still open if you like a cocktail, and the candidates will answer questions that you have. Thanks so much, guys.